Welcome to the Right Time Podcast. The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Welcome to the Right Time with Bomani Jones. My name is Clinton Yates, filling in here on ESPN Radio. We are presented by Progressive Insurance, and all guests on the Right Time appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Get in touch with us through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed, at Clinton Yates, at ESPN Radio. Right now, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Draymond Green is obsessed with LeBron James. You know how I know that? Because when Draymond Green and his team, the Golden State Warriors, won the NBA championship, all Draymond Green could talk about was LeBron James. If you tuned in yesterday, you heard me say this. It was very odd to me that he is this concerned with every single thing the King is doing after he got the ring. The Quickie T-shirt move was cool. You know, a little clap back for the Ultimate Warrior T-shirt that LeBron wore during the parade last year. But after all this, Dre is still talking. LeBron James, like I said, is not just renting headspace with Green. He owns a full city block in that man's head. It's wild to me. I really don't understand this. I mean, I get it. LeBron James is the most important player in the NBA. But, Dre, you got teammates. Go ahead and party with them. Forget about Bron. This is so bizarre to me. If I won a championship, the last thing I would do was spend my time talking about the best player on the other team. Yesterday at the parade, here's what he said about the concept of super teams. Draymond.
And can somebody give Bob some credit? They want to talk about super teams, this, super team, that. I never played on a super team. You started the super team, bro. I ain't joined the super team. Hey, Slim, I don't know what you just did, Slim, but you did something to them boys. We appreciate you joining the super team. I never played on the super team. That's crazy.
First of all, that makes no sense. All right, there is not suddenly a hierarchy of what is considered the right way to build a super team. I mean, are we being serious with that? Just because you had a draft situation to get your team, suddenly that's not as good as signing other guys? Last time I checked, it doesn't matter how you get the great players. The goal there is to amass talent and win. So to knock the Cavaliers for how they chose to do it, that just doesn't make any sense to me. That is beyond petty. Here's what LeBron James had to say on the Revolver podcast about that exact quote.
In 2003, the Lakers combined Karl Malone, Gary Payton, Shaq, and Kobe. Mm-hmm. In 96, when Jordan was retired, the Rockets joined Charles Barkley, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Clyde Drexler, all on the same team. Mm-hmm. But I don't look at it as I definitely didn't start the super team. Is that what he's trying to say? But I just feel like it's great that on the day that you're celebrating your championship, my likeness and my name is in your head. Well, yeah, I love that.
Drama! That's what we're dealing with in the NBA these days. Not the fact that two of the greatest teams we'll ever see squared off in the finals. Not the fact that the Warriors did not blow a 3-1 lead. And not the fact that Kevin Durant finally got his championship. We're talking about super teams. As a fan of the NBA and a lifelong sports fan, I must admit this is a little embarrassing. I mean, what are we doing? You got a good team. You put them together one way or the other. Last time I checked, that was what the whole point of sports is. I'm never going to understand these people who have all these judgments about whether or not guys stay in one place, find other people through whatever means they can, because apparently you can't do it one way or the other now, or these basketball hipsters are going to get on you. I just don't understand what the hate is here. LeBron James is a great player. He likes to get guys around him who can win. This is basic math. Draymond Green's out here complaining as if somehow somebody did something wrong or somebody hurt his feelings. Building it through the draft isn't any better than building it through free agency, in my opinion. If you think you're some kind of purist and that somehow makes sense to you, I don't think you like basketball that much, in fact, fam. Because what we saw in the finals, even if it wasn't the most competitive thing from a numbers standpoint, think about the players on that court. Think about who you saw. Think about what you got to watch. There have been some dog NBA finals. This wasn't one of them. Last year wasn't one of them. And the year before that wasn't one of them either. So let's do ourselves a favor here, guys and gals and everybody else. Let's drop the super team nonsense. And by that, I mean the judgment of the concept. Who doesn't want to be on a super team? I do. If I could just pick all the people I wanted to be around me who were the best at everything at all times, you think I wouldn't take that chance? If you didn't take that chance, you'd be a fool. Let's hear what Richard Jefferson had to say. Again, this is from the Revolver and Uninterrupted podcast.
One of the people forget, like when you went to Miami, right? You went to Miami. They had just lost in the first round, and you added Chris Bosh. I just remember when people were talking about super teams and this and that and putting people together. It would have been like if you had joined the Boston Celtics after you had lost to them. You know, and that's one of those things that, like, to put it in comparison, the Golden State Warriors have been the best team the last 3 years. They broke NBA records for the last 3 years, and they added probably the second best talent in the NBA.
He's incredible.
He's obviously salty. A little bit. I don't think RJ takes too kindly to what the Warriors chose to do in KD. By the way, you're listening to The Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio. I'm Clinton Yates, filling in here on a Friday. Give me a phone call, 1-888-SAY-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. But to me, this is all just small-minded foolishness. How one guy got where, whether or not it was cool to go to that team after they beat you. Sure, I understand the sense of sort of scruples or competitive spirit that might have existed at one point. But dudes are trying to win. I'm never going to knock anybody for trying to increase their chances at winning. 1-888-SAY-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Washington in Texas. What's good?
Hey, man, what's going on? The only thing that bothered me about this whole super team diatribe that Draymond Green is pushing out is the fact that they are a super team. Take LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, for instance. If you take LeBron James off that team, those guys would barely make the playoffs, okay, period. If you remove any of those four guys away from Golden State, they're going to the finals. The only thing they did was they took a team and they added an extra dude to make them that much better. So I believe LeBron James is right. He is in Draymond Green's head. But he should also take solace in the fact that they needed to build a team that strong to get over LeBron James.
Thanks for the phone call. That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. They had to get better to beat LeBron. That was a very good phone call. They needed to do that. And I'll even add to that, and I'll say, if you took one of those four guys off that team, Draymond's probably the first one you take off. I understand that Klay didn't exactly have the greatest series of all time, and I understand that Draymond is a tremendous player. But I sure think he's a lot more replaceable than the other three that we're talking about, that being Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and Klay Thompson. That's no knock on Dre. I like his game. But what are we talking about here? 1-888-SAY-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. How you doing, Coach Francis?
I'm doing good. Clinton, nice to hear you, man.
Appreciate it.
Listen, that caller that was on that just said Golden State had to get Durant to beat LeBron? No. Okay, that's not true. You can spin it any way you want. But if, just like you said, if you want to make your team better, make it better. Don't use LeBron as an excuse just because Golden State got the Durant. I bet you if Cleveland had a chance, they would have got Durant. So let's not do that, okay?
Hold on a second. That logic doesn't add up here. When they didn't have Durant, they lost to LeBron in the finals. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like there's proof here.
You think if Cleveland had a chance to get Durant, you think they wouldn't get him?
That's a separate discussion. I'm talking about the competitive balance between the two teams as they existed after the end of last year. They wouldn't have won this series without KD.
Do you think that Cleveland would have got Durant if they had a chance to get him? Yes or no?
Of course.
All right, then. So it ain't no separate discussion. It's the same thing. Stop hating on the league just because you like LeBron. You know who you like? You remind me of Robin Thicke. He used to sit in back of the bench at the Cap Center. That's who you remind me of, Clinton.
And you remind me of no one. Thanks for the phone call, Coach Francis. I'm just messing with you. Now, my point here is that they needed him, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. They were required to get better, as proven by the finals in the previous year. Of course, Cleveland would have got Durant. That is immaterial to the discussion here between Draymond and LeBron about super teams. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Joe in West Virginia, what's up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sick and tired of all the super team talk. I mean, the guy was a free agent. He had the right to choose where he wanted to go, and he wanted the best job available in his profession. I mean, you tell me all these people wouldn't choose the best opportunity to make themselves better and not take it? I mean, you know, he made the team better, and he proved that he was probably the second best player in the world, and led him to a championship.
I agree 100%. Thanks for the phone call. If you don't want to be around winners, you know what that makes you? A loser.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Welcome back to The Right Time with Bomani Jones. My name is Clinton Yates, filling in here on a Friday, talking about super teams, LeBron, Draymond Green, whether or not it actually makes sense to refer to them as such. I don't really think so, at least not in any sort of pejorative manner. Super teams are the goal, if you ask me. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Later in the program, we'll be talking to Basketball Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas. So look forward to that. Right now, though, Kyle in Toledo. What's good?
Yeah, I heard, I hear a lot of conversation about the Cavs and the Golden State adding Durant to get past LeBron and the Cavs. But Durant wasn't there 2 years ago when they beat the Cavs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And last year, I think the series went to Game 7, and Golden State was minus Draymond Green, and Curry had a sprained MCL. So
Draymond was out for Game 5, not Game 7.
It still missed a game, right?
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's on him. Look, you can't take away a win. Thanks for the phone call. You can't take away a win. It's not LeBron's fault Draymond got himself tossed. All right? Things happen. You can't just play everything out like it's on some sort of a simulator where everything is best case scenario. All right? 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Jay in North Carolina, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going, man? Appreciate you taking the call. The one thing I kind of wanted to bring up was the fact, yes, Draymond was out Game 5. That was his own mistake and everything else. But going into this year, didn't LeBron basically handpick the players that they brought into Cleveland for him to be able to take on the giant, so to speak, super team of Golden State? When he brought in Corver, when he basically handpicked every single player that was on that team. So if we're talking about super teams, he created his own super team while in Cleveland to counteract the super team that Durant formed, I guess, in Golden State that was already there.
Sure, but is that really fair? I mean, that's what is it? What else is he supposed to do? Is I guess what I'm saying. Sure. I completely understand, but my one statement is the same thing he did in Miami when everybody was all on board with him when he was LeBron was hated going from Cleveland to Miami, then was in Miami and won championships. He basically has become almost like the Magic Johnson to where he's to a point a player coach to where he can basically pick and choose who he wants on his team. But at the same time, we criticize Golden State for going and picking up Kevin Durant, who was on a great team in OKC, but they weren't able to get it done because of the selfish play from Westbrook and everyone else that they had around KD. Thanks for the phone call. Yeah, he's right. And this is what my point is. Who cares how these guys get here? Super teams are the goal. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Angelo in Toronto. Hello.
Clinton, how are you, sir?
I'm well.
Quick question for you. Honest question. If Draymond plays in Game 5 last year, do the Cavaliers win this championship?
I don't think so, no.
You don't think so? So you're telling me that they need – so the question that gentleman made, you went out and said that they needed Durant to beat Cleveland. They didn't need Durant to beat Cleveland.
I think LeBron James is a better hold on. I think LeBron James has improved as a player. You can't just act like that doesn't happen. Teams grow, they learn their competition, and they improve. That's what I think.
And just like the Golden State Warriors would have learned on not letting that 3-1 lead slip. Draymond Green doesn't take that technical foul playing this year.
You know, if my grandmother had 2 wheels, she'd be a bicycle. Thanks for the phone call. You're listening to Clinton Yates filling in for Bomani Jones here on The Right Time on ESPN Radio. There are some stories that you just have to hear to believe. Introducing 30 for 30 podcast, all new stories from the producers of the acclaimed 30 for 30 series. Subscribe now in the Listen tab of the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts. My point is here is that once you get so far into some level of deep hypotheticals, this is all nonsense anyway. Dealing with what actually happened, though, let's do that. 1-888-SAY-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Chris in Boston, what's good?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? Listen, they're not a super team. They're an all-star team. That team has 4 all-stars that start, and they have 2 all-stars that are reserved. You know, no other team has more than 3 all-stars on our team. That team is equipped to win championships for the next 4 to 6 years. You know what I mean? So the league LeBron better get some help. He better get Melo. He better get a bunch of other all-stars because that's the only team that's going to beat that team is another all-star team like they got. That's simply it. And another thing, can we finally call Boston Championship City for winning 10 championships in 15 years? Thank you.
You know, that was a good call right up until the end. I mean, you were cruising down the highway. Then all of a sudden you saw a sign for something that you wanted to eat. You couldn't wait for the exit. Just pulled over the side of the road. What was that? 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Zach in Indiana, what's up?
Hey, Clinton, listen. You got to realize what you said. You said that you can't play hypotheticals whenever the couple callers before said something about Draymond Green didn't play Game 5. So you can't hypothetically say that LeBron, you know, obviously he did get better. I mean, he's the best player in the world. I'll agree with all of that. But that doesn't necessarily mean the Warriors needed KD.
That's true, but I don't think these two things are mutually exclusive. That's what I'm saying. I think that both are the case. That's what my point is.
Okay, well, because, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, look, the Warriors weren't – those first 3 games, not only did they beat them, but they were bringing it to them. First 2 games for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, now that was KD. Do I think it would have been a closer series without KD? Yes. I think maybe Game 6, Game 7, maybe some more competitive games. So I agree with you on that point. KD definitely put him a step ahead.
Let me ask you this, though. One thing that KD added to this team, too, as well, was a level of confidence. That, to me, was almost the largest thing that KD brought, was that they felt like they were a better team on top of the fact that he was such a large contributor. They had come off of a loss in the finals. That obviously had some psychological effect. With KD, they were a stronger psychological team, and I think that made a difference.
That's a very good point, and I'll agree with that point, too. You know, I just think, though, too, with you, that the Warriors were still a very good core. Mm-hmm. And then you take in all those other hypotheticals. What if Draymond played? What if Steph was healthy last year? You know, because the year before, who won?
The Warriors won, yeah.
You know, really, it would have been a really nice series this year to actually not have KD in it, just to kind of put that discussion to an end, and then have him join like this next year, and then go from there. You know what I'm saying?
It's a good point. Thanks for the phone call. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. One last one here. Albert in Bakerside. Where's Bakerside?
Yeah, hey, but the issue for me is the basketball that's being played, not really a superstar here or there or super teams. There's always been good games. There's always been really good players. To me, as an older guy, I think the old school the more grinded out of the old rules basketball, I think was a better game, and I think it was a better product as far as business goes, you know, as the NBA as a business. But it's not, you know, it's just not that way. Those 2 teams went through their conferences like a hot knife through butter. You know, back in the day, you had some teams that could pop up and knock off a good team. I think the product is more important. The game is more important than, you know, all this BS about super teams or superstars.
Thanks for the phone call. I'm guessing that guy also thinks that the forward pass ruined football. Coming up,
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
My name is Clinton Yates, filling in here, getting you to the weekend. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the right time appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You know, nothing makes a spring birthday or anniversary more magical than 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, 1-800-Flowers is offering an exclusive 24 for 24 offer. 24 multicolored roses for $24. That's only $1 per rose, fam. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. Now, those of you who've listened for a little bit know that I live in Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States of America. And I got a buddy who's got a program. It's called Hoop Sagrado. It's an outreach program and a cultural exchange program where he sends, for lack of a better term, underprivileged youth from this city to Guatemala as part of a cultural exchange program through basketball. He's been doing it for a while. Fantastic program, and it helps out a lot of kids' lives. Today, Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas is coming to speak at their yearly gala. So he was in town. I said, let me go check Zeke right quick, see what's going on with him. So earlier this afternoon, I sat down with him, and we discussed everything from the NBA draft to the state of the NBA these days, and it was quite a fun interview. I'll start with the NBA draft. There's a lot of point guards that are coming up into the league now, and as a position, it has changed a little bit from when you were in the game. What do you think being an NBA point guard is about these days, and who do you think is the best of those you've seen in the from college ranks?
The biggest change in the position over the years has been it's a position now where you are required to score. And when I first came into the NBA, they were looking for pass-first point guards. And when I came in, I had the dual skill set of being able to score the basketball and pass the basketball. And during that period of time, I was heavily criticized for scoring the basketball and not just passing it. Now the position is you have to be able to score first, pass second. Back then it was pass first, score second. Or sometimes you wasn't even required to score.
Okay.
Because it was all about the big man. And when I look at the guards that are coming into this draft, you have some really good guards that are coming in that can score the basketball. But at the same time, the guards that are in the league now, the point guards that are in the league right now, they are so good. I mean, really so good that, these young cats coming in the NBA draft, I mean, you got Steph, you got Kyrie, you got Westbrook, you got Harden. You got guys that can really, really do it, and they can do it on a nightly basis. So the point guard position right now is going to be the hardest position to have success in my opinion.
One of the guys who is coming out is, of course, Lonzo Ball from UCLA, and he comes with not what I'd call baggage, but there is a certain element to what he's bringing as a result of his dad, LeVar. You've been in NBA front offices. What do you think about that situation in terms of, not necessarily an opinion on LeVar, but just how he's going to be able to come into the league and what, from your experience, what is that like looking at that circumstance in terms of his family?
So I've said this before, had social media and all that stuff been around when I was coming into the league, the way my mom was and the way my aunt, my brothers and everybody, I mean, it was they were 20 times worse than any of these families coming in. And, I look at it and I say, if you can play and you can get out on the floor, that's really where the games are won and lost at. The kid's a good kid. There's no off-the-court issues with him. His basketball playing inside the four lines has been superb and spectacular. And whatever is going on outside of that, it hasn't been a distraction to him thus far. And when you look at him, just his personhood, as a young adult, there's nothing sketchy in his background whatsoever. No alcohol, no drugs, no off-the-court issues, ever. He comes from a two-parent home. All the things that you look for in terms of what success supposedly looks like. He fits the bill.
We're talking with Basketball Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas here, Clinton Yates on ESPN Radio. The NBA Finals just ended. It was an interesting series. The word super team comes up a lot. What do you think about the concept of that? Not in terms of Kevin Durant making that decision to go there, but this notion that there's really two teams in the NBA that are dominating. Think that's a good thing for the league, or do you ultimately feel like if it's good basketball, it's good basketball?
I believe in dominance, and great teams have always existed in sport, whether it be baseball, football, hockey, basketball. I mean, that's how it goes. And I don't know when the narrative changed that it was bad to have great teams.
Me neither.
But when we had to win in Detroit, the 86-87 Lakers, they were considered the best teams to ever play in the history of our sport. We didn't say, oh, we can't beat those guys. We had to go home and get better. And I look at the rest of the league and the rest of the NBA right now, you got to get better. You got to improve. And Golden State has set the bar high, and that only makes our game better, to elevate it, to try to reach that level of play to beat them. You may have to beat them with a different style, or you may have to copycat what it is that they're trying to do. But you got to find a way to beat them. And if you're just going to give up, then that's not the competitive way to do things.
There's the LeBron, Michael Jordan discussion, but there's also the discussion of the all-time great teams. You and the Bad Boys were one of those teams. You've played against some of the best teams in the history of the NBA. How good do you think the Warriors really are comparatively in the history of the league?
Depends on the rules that you play by. This era of basketball, they're arguably the best to play in this era under these rules. If you played in different eras with different rules, they would have to, change their style a little bit. They would still be good. They just wouldn't be as dominant.
I love LeBron James. I'm of the opinion that he is pound for pound a better basketball player than Michael Jordan. It's a bit of a hot take to a lot of people. I've heard you say things about this before, but could you please expound on where you think he is in the pantheon of great players?
I think he's the best to ever play our game. And it's not outside of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And my criteria for measuring a champion is different than some other people's criteria. My criteria is that not only do you have the responsibility to do it inside the four lines, but you also have a social justice mission outside of the four lines as an African American in this country. You have the obligation and the responsibility to speak for the voiceless. Now, if we're just going to measure by, points and rebounds, then that conversation is, not even debatable, because then it's just Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who's the greatest of all time. But if you're talking about, putting a social justice mission on top of that, then you're looking at Kareem and LeBron James.
Last thing I'll ask you. I'm from D.C. I'm a Wizards fan. John Wall is a point guard, and I'm a big fan of his. What do you think about how his game has elevated in the last couple of years and just who he is as a point guard coming from a point guard?
I think it's gotten significantly better. And I would say when he met Rich Paul and he got in LeBron James and around those guys, and he started changing his workout habits, his eating habits, his way of living, his way of thinking, and truly committing to becoming the best. Over the last year, 2 years, that's when his game has truly taken off to where he's in the discussion as, one of the top point guards in the league. He's got to keep getting better. He's got to improve his outside shot. And, those are things that are all correctable that he can do.
He's Isaiah Thomas. He's a basketball Hall of Famer. And I'm happy to sit with him. Thank you, Isaiah.
Thank you.
That was Isaiah. We like Isaiah. So, an interesting question somebody asked me on Twitter about whether or not the transitional point guards from the 90s, like who would those guys be? Who took us from those days to these days? I don't know. Probably Tim Hardaway, Gary Payton, Jason Kidd's on that list. I like thinking about old 90s point guards. That makes me happy. That's my kind of basketball. Shannon, who would you put on that list?
For me, Peyton would probably be at the top of that list. Just his ability to score, pass, and, of course, play defense. But, yeah, on the offensive end, scoring and passing, Gary Payton.
Yeah, the glove was good.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
My name is Clinton Yates, filling in here on a Friday. We're talking super teams, rivalries, LeBron James, Draymond Green, Warriors, Cavs. They've been going back and forth at it on Insta and in the media. And they sound like they're really kind of upset with each other. LeBron made a couple comments about super teams. Draymond said a couple things about it as well during the parade. And now we've got a full-blown, I wouldn't go so far as to say beef, but we got ourselves a real rivalry here. Let's think back to the NBA. There have been some good rivalries. Pistons, Bulls, Knicks, Pacers, Lakers, Kings. Those are all the same conference rivalries. Now, with them having faced off 3 times in the finals and kind of looking like they don't even really respect each other that much, man, this is something we can get involved with. This is something where even if you don't care about either team as your hometown squad, you can pick a side and ride with it. You can argue with your homies at the barbershop or on the corner about who deserves this more or who's really got something going on. We could go cliche route. These two teams just plain don't like each other. We don't really do that around here, but that's what it's coming to look like. Let's hear what Draymond had to say at the Warriors parade about LeBron's comments on super teams.
And can somebody give Bob some credit? They want to talk about super teams this, super team that. I never played on a super team. You started the super team, bro. I ain't joined the super team. Hey, Slim, I don't know what you just did, Slim, but you did something to them boys. We appreciate you joining the super team. I never played on the super team. That's crazy.
And here's what LeBron James had to say in response on the Revolver podcast on Uninterrupted.
In 2003, the Lakers combined Karl Malone, Gary Payton, Shaq, and Kobe. Mm-hmm. In 96, when Jordan was retired, the Rockets joined Charles Barkley, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Clyde Drexler, all on the same team. Mm-hmm. But I don't look at it as I definitely didn't start the super team. Is that what he's trying to say? But I just feel like it's great that on the day that you're celebrating your championship, my likeness and my name is in your head. Well, yeah, I love that.
LeBron, the king of the subtle shade. Oh, you still talking about me, Playboy? I thought y'all won. Why are you thinking about me? Thought you were past that, partner. Nope. Draymond's still worried about LeBron. And this is my favorite part about all this, is that LeBron is willing to engage. So often do you see guys try to take the high road or act like they're too good to really say something to somebody when they come after him. Nah, LeBron's here for it. He's out here making Instagram videos. You winning the NBA championship, you talking about that dude. It's really wild. Here's what Richard Jefferson had to say on the same Revolver podcast on Uninterrupted. His thoughts are a little different.
One of the people forget, like when you went to Miami, right? You went to Miami. They had just lost in the first round, and you added Chris Bosh. I just remember when people were talking about super teams and this and that and putting people together. It would have been like if you had joined the Boston Celtics after you had lost to them. You know, and that's one of those things that, like, to put it in comparison, the Golden State Warriors have been the best team the last 3 years. They broke NBA records for the last 3 years, and they added probably the second best talent in the NBA.
He's incredible.
I don't need teams to hate each other, but I do like it when they don't like each other. That makes it a little bit more fun for everybody. Nothing wrong with a little animosity on the court. Ty Lue brought it up during the finals. Thought team was a little too friendly. I like teams that are mean. Mean is good when you're trying to win. Forget about nice guys finishing last. You never know. KD seems like a pretty nice guy. He didn't finish last. Finals MVP. But I really enjoy it when there's some real grit going on between two teams. And I'll take this outside of the realm of the NBA. I mean, I can't think of a rivalry that has interested me this much in any sport in this country in a long time. You know, you got Yanks Red Sox, that obviously exists. Duke UNC is clearly always a thing. There's other college rivalries that matter a lot. But between pro teams, I can't really think of anything that comes to mind that is rivaling the sort of overall largesse of this bad boy. This is fun. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Clinton Yates filling in for Bomani Jones here on the Right Time on ESPN Radio. Give me a phone call. Tell me what you think about this rivalry. Gene in Pennsylvania, what's up?
Hey, Clint, how are you?
I'm good, man.
All right, so two things. Philadelphia 76ers, 1983, super team. Moses Malone couldn't get past the Lakers or the Celtics. Should have won 3 championships. Secondly, if Draymond doesn't implode last year in the finals, maybe we're not having this discussion about Kevin Durant being on the super team.
I agree. No, that's fair. But again, it's not like Draymond got randomly. People talk about what if he wasn't in that game, or what if he'd played in that game in Game 5? How would the series have gone? Look, it's not like he was hurt or he like randomly missed a flight and there was some unfair thing. He got thrown out of a game because he lost it and melted down, as the caller just said. That was part of the competitive balance of that game. He lost the psychological battle to LeBron and got tossed. I mean, that's part of what basketball is. So when you're talking about, oh, well, if they had him, they would have won. Well, you know, when he was there, he couldn't handle it, at least in that moment. You have to take that into account when you're being real about what the actual competition was. 1-888-SAY-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Chris in Denver, how are you?
Yo, man, I'm doing well. I just want to say this is awesome, man. LeBron has given us a reason to either hate him or love him off the court, and that's what makes a rivalry, and that's what makes us love to watch. Never really been a big LeBron fan, but I'm listening to this.
I appreciate the phone call, and I agree. I wasn't a huge LeBron fan until this year when he started really coming into his own. And I mean that in the context of how he communicated his message to the world about who he is as a basketball player. I'm not saying that all of a sudden LeBron, you know, I just realized LeBron was good at basketball. That's not what I'm talking about. But LeBron is a different character now than he was 3-4 years ago. For lack of a better term, it's much easier to like LeBron now than it was then. He's funny. He's smart and he's good. You know? He makes guys around him better. I enjoy that. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Rick in Atlanta. What's up?
Hey, man, I've been listening to you for the last couple of days about this LeBron James, Draymond Green thing. And, you know, you forget that last year when the Cavs won, LeBron was trolling the Warriors. He had the Ultimate Warrior T-shirt, had the 3-1 cookies. You know, the words were on his mind a lot, too. You know, so this thing is going back and forth. It ain't just Draymond and the Warriors are just thinking about LeBron.
No, I didn't forget that. You're right. He did that. That happened. That was funny. But, you know, in the next step of this, feel like after 2-1, you got a second one. It's kind of like, you know, that one's for y'all. It's kind of how I feel. I don't know. When I win stuff, I like to celebrate with my teammates. I ain't worried about talking to the losers. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Brandon in Ohio. What's good?
Yeah, I really wanted to call and point out the elephant in the room here. I kind of agree with what Richard Jefferson had to say. Pretty much a collection of great players does not necessarily make a super team. Kind of like he said, you have a team that won 73 games and set records and then adds another great player, arguably one of the best players in the league. That's what makes it a super team. And not to beat a dead horse, but you know, you got LeBron going to a Miami team that was not really that great the year before. So I just don't see how LeBron going to the Heat is considered a super team, even though there was a collection of 3 great players that went there.
That's a good phone call. He's right. If you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of what this all is, I tremendously agree with him. That was a good phone call. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Talking super teams, talking rivalries. I'm very much enjoying Cavs Dubs. This is a good one. This is one you're going to remember as a fan of the NBA pretty much for the rest of your life. There's a large imprint on the history of the league in these last 3 NBA finals. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. John in Texas. Hello.
Hey, Clinton, I just had to give a call. You were talking about Draymond being, it wasn't like he got injured or missed a flight. He got suspended because he couldn't control his cool. But most of your folks in the NBA, I mean, I'm nowhere close to that, but are saying that that's the most disrespectful move in all of the NBA. And of all the things Draymond got suspended for, the NBA conveniently made sure it was in the finals when they're down 3-1, all control is lost. He should have never been suspended in the first place. So, I agree with you that the hatred in the rivalry is well-deserved, but it should be 3-0 had the NBA not played their part.
I love a good conspiracy theory. Thanks for the phone call. Alas, he didn't play. Cavs won. That was the deal.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Welcome back to The Right Time with Bomani Jones. My name is Clinton Yates. Talking a lot about Cavs, Dubs, and where that rivalry's going. Hit us up on Twitter at Clinton Yates, at ESPN Radio. Got a poll question for you. Is Cavs Warriors the NBA's best rivalry since Celtics Lakers? It's a very interesting question, and things are getting heated up now that the two teams have been trading barbs about super teams. It's been very fun. I've been enjoying it. And I think the answer to that question is yes, personally. The NBA, though, top of mind everywhere. Got some breaking news. According to ESPN's Mark Stein and Zach Lowe, the Sixers and Celtics are in advanced discussions on a blockbuster trade involving the number 1 overall pick in next week's draft. League sources told ESPN on Friday that the Sixers and Celtics are working on a trade that in its current iteration would send a package of Sixers draft picks to Boston, including Philly's number 3 overall pick in Thursday's draft, in exchange for Boston's turn at number 1. What does that mean? For those of you who have been longtime listeners of me, you know that I personally feel that the Celtics are actually in an extremely difficult place in terms of what their future meant. A lot of you got mad at me because I was intonating, because you didn't understand what I was trying to say. But sometimes too many options with too high leverage can be very difficult. They got choices, and they got to make them quickly, or else they're going to blow all of this. People blowing me up on Twitter. Top picks in cap space. Top picks in cap space. Blah, blah, blah. You know what this signals to me? This signals to me that Danny Ainge does not want to have the number 1 pick be that important to him. I'm not saying that he's punking out. I'm just saying moving down to 3 with a bunch more picks, I just don't feel that he is ready to bank himself on what that top pick is going to be, Shannon. I think this is a bit of a cop-out in a certain way.
Well, I'm looking at it a couple of ways. I'm seeing that it appears that if Ainge does this, that he's not completely sold on taking Fultz, number 1, and that he feels as though that he can get the same quality of player in at 3. And if you're not sold on him at 1 and you can get the same play at 3, plus add in additional picks that you'll get from Philly, why not do it? Philly has a ton of picks. But one thing that's also interesting with Boston, the whole thing leading up to the trade deadline was, what's Boston going to do with this Nets pick? Were they going to trade it, or were they going to trade it for a star player, or were they going to get or save it and try to get the potential number 1 pick? We saw that they saved it. Now they have the number 1 pick. And now we find out that they may not even keep that pick. So it's weird. So it's very weird, and this also tells me that they're building for the future and not necessarily trying to compete right away with LeBron and the Cavs. Like, hey, we had the best record in the East. We'll add a few pieces here, but it's not necessarily win now. We're trying to build for the kind of the post-LeBron, or, hey, compete and have a better chance in the next 3 years, which will probably be post-Isaiah Thomas.
Boston fans, what do you think? This, to me, is confusing. If I'm a Celtics fan and Danny Ainge is trying to sell me on the future, okay. But what does that mean for Isaiah Thomas? What does that mean for Al Horford? What does that mean for what you're doing right now in the draft? Top picks in cap space. Well, top picks are kind of moving down. I think Danny Ainge might be a little confused here. I don't know that he is very confident about any of this right now, because this only adds more questions. And there were already a ton, which was, how are you going to think about Isaiah Thomas in the long term? Defensive liability, who has to score. You're not going to build for a championship with that guy being the main offensive threat on your team. Whew, C's are in a weird spot, and it's gotten weirder. I'm genuinely intrigued by this now. Because Danny Ainge, it seems to me, is scrambling. I mean, sure, if you don't think that you need the number one pick to get a certain guy, I understand the down trade. But there's so many things, there's so many balls in the air with who and when is going to be impactful under what combination, that this just seems to add further confusion to the mix. With the number one pick, you can at least stake your claim on somebody and say, hey, all right, or even the number 3 pick, I guess at this point is not really much different, but it just seems like he does not want to have the pressure of having that number one pick not work out. Because the difference between 1 and 3 is not that big, but let's not forget Darko Milicic. I'm just saying, this is, to me, signals Boston is not as clear on what their future was going to be or is going to be, and they're not really sure where to go. You're listening to The Right Time on ESPN Radio with Bomani Jones. I'm Clinton Yates, filling in here on a Friday. Tune in tomorrow as the Astros host the Red Sox. It's presented by Let Go. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. Man, C's fans. What do you think? Shannon, what do you think Danny Ainge is selling to them at this point? Because there is no clear path to anything other than being good at minimum 5 years down the road.
No, that's a great question. I wish I had the answer to it because I had no idea what he's doing. Because I thought pick one. Either you go for it now and try to trade and use some of these draft picks. So they have another Nets pick next year. So use some of these picks to acquire a high level. It's been talked about. The Paul Georges and the Jimmy Butler types. You either do that or you settle and get the number one pick and build for the future. If that's Fultz, if that's whoever it may be, who knows? That he may be higher on a guy like a Josh Jackson and feel as though you can still get him at 3 and get additional picks. I wish there was a direct plan, and maybe he needs to put a name to it. Like with Philly, how we have the process, trust the process, right? So we're able to buy it. Right, you can push back. We're able to buy in, and the fans are able to buy into whatever they're selling because it has a nice, shiny name to it. With Boston, I don't know, what is it? Trust the I don't knows. I have no idea what Danny Ainge is doing at this moment.
Oh man, Celtics fans, what are you thinking? Hit me up, 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. I'm genuinely intrigued as to what C's fans thinks is going to happen next. Because right now there's no way to know. And you know who I think doesn't know either? Danny Ainge. He's scrambling. He doesn't want to stake his claim in one dude. He's just adding more picks, buying time. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Dave in Canada.
Hello there. How you doing?
I'm well.
Hey, so I'm a Celtic fan. I'm a Bostonian, but I live up here in Canada, okay? So take a look at the Celtics roster and look at all the guards they have. Look at all the good guards they have. You're going to add Markelle Fultz and then not play him for, 2 years? You got Avery Bradley, Marcus Smart there, IT. Why not trade down? Stockpile picks. Maybe Sarek will be in the deal. Maybe we're going to get the Lakers pick next year. I think it's a brilliant move. I think you're reading it wrong. Danny's not panicking. Danny's outsmarting the rest of the league. That's my take.
Thanks for the phone call. Well, I guess the C's just aren't going to get better next year. Alas.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
My name is Clinton Yates, filling in here on a Friday. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, and all guests on The Right Time appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And joining us on that line right now is Michael Collins. He's out at the U.S. Open. Mike, let me ask you off top. We have a poll question going on right now. Do you think the Cavaliers and the Warriors rivalry is the best in the NBA since Lakers and Celtics?
Since Lakers and Celtics? I mean, I seem to remember, but didn't we even do a 30 for 30 on the Bad Boys?
Correct.
And what the Bulls had to do to get past them? Man, I don't know if this rivalry is better than that. it might be as good. I don't know. That you got to remember, in these 3 series, there's only been this one of them had drama, right? Like when Golden State was up 3-1.
Sorry,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Hold up, you got to say it right. Drama. One of them had drama for your mama. And that was last year's. Like, it was not like this one had any drama. You know, even when the Cavaliers won one, it wasn't like everybody was like, oh, here they go again. It was like, oh, that's so nice. They got one. Isn't that cute? Isn't that, look at little Jimmy dancing over there. That's so cute, right? Like,
so you're not engaged by this Draymond, LeBron foolishness at all?
No, I love it. I think it's funny, but it's funny in a different way because they're actually – it's like what you would do with your friends. It's not like what you would do like with somebody that you don't like. It would be different if if these two teams didn't like each other and they had beef and like people was fighting and stuff. Now everybody's even more engaged. You know what I mean? Like if it was like, all right, hold up. If Draymond's in the club, make sure LeBron don't go to the club. Right? Because then, right, it's true. Like, you laughing, but that's the kind of drama that people be like, yo, them two crews met up, right? They had to be separated. It'd be different knowing, you know, that these guys go hang out and they just needle each other back and forth. It's kind of like, you know, what we would do on the golf course or out on the basketball, like you would do with your friends, and that's all right.
Yep. We're talking with Michael Collins here on The Right Time with Bomani Jones. Clinton Yates filling in on ESPN Radio. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. You could save hundreds on your car, business, or recreational vehicle insurance from a local independent agent. Go to Progressive.com today. Now that's Progressive. You're obviously on the golf course, and I'll tell you this straight up, Michael. I'm the kind of guy in the post-Tiger era who tunes in at about 4:30 on a Sunday for a major if my Twitter feed blows up enough beyond the people who I already know love golf. So what am I looking for at this point, at this stage of the tournament?
You know me, man. Like, I'm not going to try and blow sunshine and rainbows at you, dog. Nothing. Just sit back and chill for now. Because the only thing so far that's been good about this tournament, that's been fun about this tournament, was how early in the week everybody was talking about this fescue grass, which is like 3.5, almost 4 feet tall, and how thick it was. And like Kevin Na did this video saying how thick it was and, you know, how it's going to be impossible to get out of. People are going to be losing golf balls and stuff. And then Rory McIlroy on Tuesday went into his press conference and like threw shade at him and was like, if you can't hit a 60-yard wide lines of fairways, then maybe you just need to pack up and go on home. And then Rory went out there and Kevin Na shot 4 under and Rory got dusted. He shot 78 6 over. And he was the one that was in the fescue whole time. And I even called it. I was like, dude, this is why there's no trash talking in golf. It would be awesome if there was, but this is why there's no trash talking in golf, because the only person that gets lit up in golf when they talk trash is the person that was talking trash, which is why Rory's going home. Like, you look at all the top dudes out there, of the top 10 guys in the world, on Thursday, only 2 of them was under par. The rest of them, quite honestly, sucked. They was terrible. Now, like Dustin Johnson's making a nice little comeback. He's on the course now. Jordan Spieth trying to make a little comeback, so he's playing all right. But, like, Henrik Stenson, Alex Noren, who I know most of y'all listen like, we ain't never heard of them anyway. Cool. Correct. They're not going to be around for the weekend, so don't worry about it. But, like, Rory McIlroy, this dude is right now, he's done, and he's tied for 108. Along with the dude who used to be number one, Jason Day, who shot 79-75. That Australian that everybody's been talking about, this dude's going to make this great comeback. He's plus 10. There's amateurs beating this dude. So, and there is an amateur in the top 10 right now whose last name is Champ. That's kind of cool.
Okay.
That is kind of cool. So, I mean, there's a little bit of drama out here. Ricky Fowler is in the lead right now. And that would be the biggest story. You know, the little cool dirt bike riding. He's the one that everybody dresses like. He's the one that brought, like, cool fashion and the flat bill to golf. And, like, all the kids dress like him. And even the dudes that are 40 years old and look completely inappropriate wearing our orange. So if Ricky were to win this, which would be his first major, that would be big time.
I like Ricky. He's a cool dude. We're talking with Michael Collins here on the Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio. I'm Clinton Yates filling in. So, look, I mean, if Day and McIlroy are out, I got to believe that is a huge bummer from the PGA standpoint in terms of, trying to sell this bad boy. I mean, the U.S. Open is still a pretty important major as far as golf representing itself. I mean, Ricky Fowler's one dude, but this seems to be an overall letdown, I would say, for golf fans in general, no?
Well, it's two things. Number one, thank goodness for Ricky Fowler that he's up there at the top of the leaderboard, because when it comes down to it, he probably is one of the most recognizable faces in golf right now, if you talk about a worldwide stage. But the thing about this U.S. Open, the USGA has been messing up the past couple years. They've just been messing up. Like, they go to some golf. We went to Chambers Bay in Washington State, and it was like that golf course was horrific. And to give you an idea, one golfer, when they asked him, what was it like out there, the dude was like, oh, we were putting on broccoli. And the next golfer came in and said, nah, broccoli's green. This was more like cauliflower. Like, it was horrible. It was bad for the fans. So it's like, then we go to another golf course, a traditional Oakmont, which is great. And the USGA messes up with the rules because it's like a bunch of amateurs that only do one tournament a year. So they get Dustin Johnson and almost make him not win the tournament, which there would have been. So the USGA has not looked good. Now we're at a place, another new golf course with no trees. It looks a lot like a British Open. So, and everyone complaining about now, this course could be almost 8,100 yards long. Like, it's a big golf course with a big walks, and it's not what you would normally think for the U.S. Open. So the fact now that not only is this a different golf course that guys weren't sure of, and it's the first time we've come here, but now a lot of the big-name dudes are not playing good. Like, this was the one time where the USGA couldn't afford to mess up, and it's like they did okay, but now the players is messing up.
I hear that.
Which cracks me up because it's, hey, man, look, we just did what we were supposed to do, and the players are going, oh, our bad. We a little stanky right now. We got a little funk. My bad.
He's Michael Collins. He used to be a caddy. He's a real funny dude, and he's literally watching grass grow at the U.S. Open. Thank you, Michael.
You know what? It's hard enough to watch paint dry on TV, and now we're trying to talk about it on the radio. You know what I mean?
It's a visual medium. Oh, wait, it's not. I'll check you later, Michael.
Talk to you later, Clinton. Good chatting.
Peace. Yeah, I don't watch a whole lot of golf. Post-Tiger era, your boy is not really tuning in. But if you tell me that a blimp is crashing on the course and other guys are crash landing off of it out of the tournament, maybe I'll tune in. Maybe I won't. Props to Ricky Fowler. I like him. He wears cool hats.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
You're listening to The Right Time on ESPN Radio with Bomani Jones, but I'm Clinton Yates filling in on a Friday. Switching gears to the NFL here. Commissioner Roger Goodell said something about Colin Kaepernick today that was not exactly shocking, but was a little interesting to hear him say directly. He was at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum Thursday and on stage at an NFL Network event, Rams All Access. Andrea Kramer asked him about whether or not she thought Kaepernick was being blackballed from the league. And here's what Goodell said. All want to get better, referring to all teams. And if they see an opportunity to get better as a football team, they're going to do it. They're going to do whatever it takes to make their football team better. So those are football decisions. They're made all the time. I believe that if a football team feels that Colin Kaepernick or any other player is going to improve that team, they're going to do it. Look, I mean, come on. Like, at this stage, I'm not necessarily so sure that we can expect anything of anyone from anywhere in the league to say anything other than that. We've been through a lot of the offseason. If you're going to get him on your team, it's going to have already happened. But at no point now is somebody in an official capacity, especially not somebody that's not an owner, going to come out and just say, nah, none of us want him and we all talked about it. That's just not realistic. The Giants owner came out and said, basically, nah, we didn't want to do it because our fans would revolt, telling you a little bit something about what they think about other guys that have been on that roster before. He said something. But right now, I think that this is basically a mystery solved. Blackballed, whisper campaign, whatever you want to call it. Even if every team individually made their own independent decision not to deal with what would be coming with Colin Kaepernick, it's all the same result. Guy's not ever going to play in the league anymore. Might sound crazy, but I don't see any other reason to believe anything else. You going to pick him up now? Maybe if somebody gets hurt, a starter of import. But even then, adding a guy quasi mid-season, a guy like that, I don't think any team's going to do that. Like I've said before, half of this is not even about whether or not these teams, whomever may be in power or in control, it's not about what they think about his politics. It's about the fact that many NFL squads are simply not ready from a PR standpoint to deal with this. Everybody's going to be asking him about his thoughts about everything in America all the time. And you're basically going to be getting official statements from one of your players that are going to outline a certain view on the world and on the country. Not every squad is ready for that. Some squads can barely handle random press conferences introducing new players without bungling it. I can think of a franchise down the street from where I live that could barely handle anything. You throw in an actual smart guy who actually discusses his thoughts on current events, that's a PR disaster for many squads. It just is. There's no way around that if you're used to basically only being a football operation and suddenly you've got him on your roster. So I get that. You just don't got to lie. Tell the truth. I'm supposed to believe from Roger Goodell that every single team in the league, for football reasons, didn't want Colin Kaepernick? Nah, nobody's buying that. Not a soul. But Shannon, at this point, I think it's pretty fair to say he ain't ever played in the NFL again.
Ever? You don't think so? You don't think?
No. I mean, unless barring a relatively big injury where he is sort of required, I just don't see it happening. I don't think there's a squad that can pick him up and weather the storm without making themselves potentially look foolish. That's just me. I mean, it's cynical, absolutely, but I also think it's realistic. Now, you've got teams that have been, relatively sort of, I guess you can say progressive, if you will. The Seahawks come to mind, didn't work out there. The Dolphins, for example, they've got this new push where they're getting every single player on their team to register to vote. Their owner is part of the Rise organization. There are teams that theoretically might line up with what you think Kaepernick's belief system may be if that's necessary for you to understand. But I just don't know that there's a lot of teams that are ready to deal with that. And that's really unfortunate. Sidebar, I love this effort from the Dolphins, just to be clear. An NFL team getting people engaged from a civic standpoint, that hits hard in a lot of communities. And even if it's just the players, maybe that extends out into some registration drives. Maybe that extends out into communities and educating them about how to be engaged in their communities. That's cool. I'm here for that. Now that I think about it, the Dolphins actually would be a decent franchise in this situation. I'm Clinton Yates, filling in for Bomani Jones. You're listening to The Right Time on ESPN Radio. We're brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. But overall, I don't know why Goodell even needs to act like this is even an issue anymore. Everybody knows that Colin Kaepernick is not playing because he kneeled for the national anthem. And everybody out there seems to believe that the national anthem is such a revered song in the history of the nation that this man never deserved to play in the NFL again. If you don't know my feelings about the national anthem, I'll tell you this. Number one, it's a waste of time, in my personal opinion. And number two, the history of that song, when they first started playing that song, is in the 1918 World Series. Cubs, Bo Sox. Babe Ruth was still on the team. That's when that tradition started. So if you want to defend that and hang on to it as the thing that has to happen, no matter what, to honor this country, why don't you think about what baseball was like back then? Oh, that's right. They didn't let black people play. Weird. How about that? The legacy of the song, at its core, at sporting events, is rooted in a racist situation. So there's that little nugget just to hold on to while you yell and scream about how Colin Kaepernick is not patriotic. Just know that. All that aside, though, it's going to be really tough for him to get back into the league because NFL teams just don't want to deal with anything more than they absolutely have to. And that's a shame because Colin Kaepernick would make a lot of NFL teams better.
Thanks for listening to the Right Time Podcast. Please come back Monday for more. And don't forget to listen to The Right Time with Bomani Jones from 4 p.m. to 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.